Hello and welcome to my very first YouTube video. My name is Emily and this is Magic Moments with M. I am a Clemson University sophomore studying graphic communications and branding, and today I'm going to be talking about 3 things that I've learned as a current college student. Now, a lot of this will be pertaining to if you're looking for colleges or are nervous about college, what's college even gonna be like? Well, I can try and answer that for you. Now, of course, we're in the world of COVID, so my experiences are very unconventional compared to anyone else that has probably made videos before 2020. But a lot of it is actually very similar and can apply to, real life in general. But as a college student, these are some things that I had to learn along the way. I'm gonna first tell you my story about what colleges I was accepted into, what majors I was thinking about doing. So I am, like I said, a sophomore graphic communications major at Clemson. And I applied to 4 schools before I knew I was going to Clemson. I had no idea where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to be close, but I didn't know where I wanted to go. I didn't really have like a set school in mind. I applied to 4 schools, the first being NC State, North Carolina State University in Raleigh. I got rejected from there, which is fine because I didn't really want to go there anyway. It was just like a backup to my backup to my backup to my backup school. I also applied to High Point University, also in the Raleigh-Durham area. I got into there, and then I applied to Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. And I got into there and almost went there, but then I got accepted on my birthday to Clemson University, and this is where I am today. I do not regret that choice at all. It's the closest to home, yet it's the only one that I'm out of state for, so that's something to keep in mind, but I can do a whole other video on that if you want me to. Now, the reasons that I chose Clemson were pretty much entirely the major and the atmosphere. So I automatically knew I didn't want to go to NC State. That was just to get an application into a school if I didn't get anywhere else. Now for High Point, that school was they're very prestigious, and obviously that's cool, If you're into business and wanting to be professional, that's the school to go to. For some reason, I failed to mention that it is also the most expensive school by far that I applied to. Even though I'm out of state for Clemson, being in state at High Point University would have still been probably as much or more money because it's a private school. So that's also really the big thing why I didn't go there. I almost chose Appalachian State because of the area. It's very close to my family. It's very close to my boyfriend. It's very close to all of my other friends. But one of the reasons that I didn't end up going there was because a lot of people from my high school ended up going there. It's one of the easiest schools to get into for my state. I live in North Carolina. That's where I went to high school. That's where I grew up. And so all the people that I knew were going there, and I wanted a little bit of a change of pace. I had grown up with the same people for the last 16 years or so, and I wanted a change, which is fair. I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to learn how things worked on my own. I didn't want to have to follow in anybody's footsteps. I didn't have to, but if people that I know were going there, I'm probably going to be surrounded by the same people, and I wanted something different. So that was one of the main reasons why I chose Clemson over App State. I also chose Clemson over App State because of the major. I wanted to do graphic design. And Clemson's graphics program is either an art degree, which I didn't really want. That was part of the reason why I didn't want to go to App State, is because if I went to App State, the graphic arts program was a art degree. Here, it's a little weird. It's a business degree, and it's a Bachelor of Science, but it's graphic communications. So it's basically graphic arts plus a little bit of business. So it's like branding, sort of, and like print industry. So that was the main reason why I wanted it, is because it was more doors open for me in the future, and it felt like something that I wasn't like purely artsy. And so I am also, fun fact, very musically inclined. I was the most band kid to ever be a band kid in high school. and in middle school, but mostly in high school. I was in 3 bands in high school. I absolutely loved it. I was drum major in high school. I knew I wanted to do band in some way, shape, or form wherever I went. So when I got to Clemson, I learned about Tiger Band, and I auditioned for Tiger Band, which is their very prestigious marching band that travels everywhere with all of the football things. And obviously, if you're on the East Coast, you know about Clemson football. And I got in. I play saxophone, and I was a saxophone member of the Tiger Band for the last 2 years. I will not be doing Tiger Band in the next couple years, I don't think. I'll get into that in a little while. But yeah, a little bit about me and my story. First thing that I've learned from being a college student for 2 years is that it's okay to not know. This can be a very broad statement for a lot of things. It can be for just life in general. It can be for finding a school to go to. It can be for figuring out what you want to do in life. Like, that's a lot on an 18-year-old to figure out. And so this is one thing that I recommend. Now, Clemson doesn't do this, and sometimes I wish it did, but most schools allow you to be undecided, meaning you don't know what major you want, you just know that you want to go to this school. And so within the first semester, you're going to have to declare a major at some point, but at least it gets your foot in the door at the school, and you're allowed to pick and choose your core classes, figure out some electives that you might want to do. And once you choose that major, if you choose an elective that you enjoy and you want to do your major in that elective, it could probably transfer into a major requirement. So that's one recommendation that I have, is if you don't know what you want to do in life or in your college career, try and do undecided if possible. Now, if you do know what you want to do, like I did, I wanted to be graphic arts or graphic design or something along those lines, that's fine. You can do that if you want to, or there's undecided as an option. Another thing that goes along with this is that you're also allowed to take a break from school. Now, I know a lot of parents, if you're watching this, you're probably a teenager looking for colleges and trying to figure out what college is like. You're allowed to take a gap year, or 2, or 3, or however many. You're not pushed to do anything that you don't want to do, or you don't feel like you're ready for. I wanted to do it just to get school out of the way. It's a little bit of a comfort zone for me. I've always been a student, just like everyone else that's probably watching this video. But my boyfriend, who is 2 years older than me, is technically a freshman in college because he took a year or 2 years gap year to get work experience, went to school for a semester, got more experience, and now is back at school. So I'm theoretically 2 semesters ahead of him, but he's 2 years older than me. Now that doesn't really, age and year in school don't correlate. I mean, they correlate, but they don't, like, just because you're in age doesn't mean that you have to do this thing that you're probably pushed to do. So if you feel like you're not ready for college, that's fine. If you don't want to go to college, that's fine too. But just know that you're allowed to take a break from school if you think you really need it. So along with my story, at first, the reason why I didn't say what my minor was, yes, I had a minor, and I do now too, but I switched it. And there are a lot of reasons for this. So as probably a 6th grader, maybe a 7th grader, I wanted to do animation. I am obsessed with Disney. I always have been, and I probably always will be, and I wanted to work on the movies in some capacity. I wanted to do animation. I wanted to be the person that was making those characters come to life. What I didn't realize is that that takes a lot of computer science skills, and that is not my cup of tea. So I took 1 semester of my minor class. They called it Digital Production Arts here at Clemson. And I took 1 class and hated it. I was so behind. Everyone in that class had known how to use some sort of 3D software to some extent, and I was a clean slate. I had no idea what to do, and my teacher told me, if you really want to do well in this class, this is going to be very fast-paced, you're going to have to do 2 and 3 hours of work a day. And I was like, no. That is not for me. I'm taking 16 credit hours this semester, and I could not. That would be impossible. So I dropped that class, which was very hard to do because ever since I was like 13, I've wanted to do this thing. And now knowing that it's probably not going to be where I end up going long term, it was a lot for me to process. I had a bit of a mid-college crisis, you can call it. But that made me realize what I really enjoyed doing, and it's not that. I love drawing, I love Disney and using their characters as references for drawing and things, but I don't know if animating them would be my cup of tea. So I'm now looking towards working with the company as a whole and not just on their movies. So that's one thing that, you know, it's okay to not know what you want to do. And if you do know what you want to do, it's okay to all of a sudden quit it. Like, your younger self won't judge you for that. They'll be glad that you're doing what you're doing. The younger you wanted to do this thing and now you don't want to do it, that's fine. You have the right to change your mind. Your future you and your past you are two totally different people. And I had to realize that. I had to think to myself, okay, do I want to be miserable doing something that I think I might want to do? Or do I want to do something that I'm truly passionate about? And worst case scenario is I learn animation later in life. I take a different class that's not on top of 14 other credit hours, or I take like an online class, or I learn through a company how to use the software. Like, that's okay to me. I feel like if I went through the process of learning how to use it in a way that my brain could make sense of, instead of having to worry about 5 classes worth, I feel like I would do a lot better. But in this point in time, that is not happening. So my message to you through all of this is that even if you think you know what you want to do, you might not end up doing it, and you have the right to change your mind. And like I said at the beginning, I was in Tiger Band. I was in Tiger Band through the head of the pandemic, fall of 2020. It was a rough time. We didn't travel. We wore masks even outside, which is weird because we're in band, but even our instruments had little masks on them that you put around. So you take your mask off your face and you put your instrument on your face, and then the mask would continue to the end of the instrument. I'll insert a couple pictures here if you want to look at it. It's very interesting. A lot of high school bands have implemented this. Even, you know, spring 2022, some bands are still doing this. Most college bands are still doing this inside basketball games and things. But the reason why I won't be doing it, I know you're probably thinking,
like, this is a big opportunity. Why would you give it up?
And the reason why is because even though I'm such a band kid, I love music, I love making music, I love playing music with my friends and family, it was a lot of stress. Being in high school marching band, not doing any competitions, having like 25 people, I was fine with that. That's my cup of tea. I loved being in a giant marching band. I loved traveling. I loved doing all of these things, but most of my friends were not in band in college. And I couldn't hang out with any of them because I was like, I can't, I have band. I was one of those kids. I was like,
I can't, I have band. I can't, I have band.
And I didn't see anyone. Of course, I saw people in bands 3 times, 4 times a week, and I was friends with them, but I wouldn't hang out with them otherwise. They weren't my type of people to hang out with. And not only that, like, I didn't feel like I fit in, like I wasn't comfortable mentally, physically, emotionally with the whole stress of everything, with the kind of people that they were. A lot of college kids are party people, and that's just not me. Everyone that I knew was, and I just, you know, I started losing interest. And that's another thing too, is I encourage you to find something that you truly enjoy, and if you're allowed to try something out, see if you like it, and then if you don't, you can just drop it. You don't have any obligation for that. Now for me, I did have an obligation because it was technically a class, so I couldn't just drop it, but most clubs you can just drop and not show up again, and that's fine. So like I said before, it's okay to not know what you want to do. It's okay to change your mind. You don't have to, you know, stick with this one thing and not go back. Like, that's not how college has to work. And that goes into something else. My second tip for you is to find something else to do besides school. I was the type of person that was very, very, very studious. I would do all my homework all the time. I'd be always doing homework, even in high school. And the only thing else that I had time for was band. That's my extracurricular. A lot of you probably are in sports or in some sort of club or in dance or whatever. I encourage you to keep doing that. Find something you enjoy. Get involved on campus. College isn't just schoolwork all the time. Find friends and hang out with them. Join a club. Maybe a sorority. That's not my thing. I'm not in any sororities, but if you want to, go for it. That's probably a great way to make friends, a great way to network, and overall just have a good time in college. Don't make college a super big deal. Like, of course it's a big deal. You're paying for it. You're getting a degree for you to use for the rest of your life, hopefully. But don't make it such a priority that you're not doing anything else, because you will get burnt out very quickly. I did last semester, and the semester that I first got here, my first freshman semester, was awful. I was taking hard classes. I was in marching band. I barely had any friends, and I was so stressed all the time. Spring of 2021, that got better. I wasn't in band. I was taking a little bit of an easier curriculum, and my mental health got better. And then I started marching band again. Fall of 2021, restrictions for COVID were a little less. We didn't have to wear masks outside, which was nice. We could actually like do all the formations and talk to people closer than 6 feet apart. So that was nice. We did all the traveling. We went to all the games. I actually had my first pre-game, which was awesome. But that's part of the reason why I stopped doing it, is my mental health was awful last semester. I was stressed all the time. I was burnt out. I felt like I wasn't entirely included. Now, I wasn't like bullied or anything, but the people that were in my section was the smallest. It was 11 people, and it wasn't the kinds of people. Those people were so nice. I love my section. They're my family in band sense. Now, I wouldn't hang out with them outside of band. I wanted to, but the kinds of things that they did, I'm not trying to judge them or anything, but they're just not my kind of people. They're awesome people, but not my kind of people. And that's why I'm not going to be doing it. Wow, I went on such a tangent there. But anyway, I digress. The whole point of me bringing this up again is you have to find something that you truly enjoy. Find a passion, keep doing your hobby, even in college. Go to the gym, take walks, hang out with friends, go to coffee shops. You know, it doesn't have to be all work all the time. Also, along with that, try and romanticize it a little bit. I've been doing that this semester, and it's been so nice. When I say romanticize, I mean, like, I don't know if you've seen the things where it's like study blur and being that girl. You know, you can do that if you want. That's cool. Or just find little things within your day to make it more enjoyable. Like every morning, I go to the little smoothie place and I get myself a smoothie bowl for breakfast. And then I do my homework while I eat my smoothie bowl, and it's the best thing ever. I also do work in like the Starbucks around campus. I go to the library and just like chill. I'm not doing work all the time, but at least it's better than sitting in a confined room for hours on end doing homework like I would in high school. So make it a little more enjoyable for yourself. Don't just do work all the time, because that's no fun. No one wants to do that. My last tip is something that's a little controversial within the college community, and that is that pulling all-nighters are not necessary. I'm so bad at pulling all-nighters. I can't. I messed up for 3 days. Like my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, all goes down the drain if I pull an all-nighter. I've only done it twice in my life. Once was when I traveled across the country on a plane. I pulled a 24-hour day because I left at 3 in the morning Eastern time. I went to Seattle for a wedding. We got to Seattle at like maybe 10, 11 a.m. And then we had a wedding that day. And the wedding lasted until about 10 o'clock Pacific time, which is like you know, pretty much a whole day, 24 hours. And my body hated me a week after that. It was awful, and I do not recommend. But if, you know, you're one of those people that stays up until 3 a.m., you do you. But to succeed in college, they're not necessary. Make sure you get your sleep. Honestly, I would rather you sacrifice a homework assignment and get your sleep in so that your mental health is okay. You can always extend an assignment, and a bad grade isn't the end of the world. So if you pull an all-nighter, you'll probably end up regretting it in the morning. But yeah, in college, in the last 2 years, I haven't pulled an all-nighter. The only time that I have was for Tiger Band, and that was when we traveled to Raleigh and back in one day. I ended up getting home at like 3:30 a.m. It was awful. I hated it, and that's part of why I'm not doing Tiger Band again. But I always say that. For some reason, I keep coming back to that. But yeah, I haven't needed to pull one for schoolwork at all. As long as you're proactive and manage your time okay, that's what matters. If you're not doing that, then you might end up having to pull an all-nighter. But I personally make my mental health a priority, and I don't pull all-nighters. I just don't. Also, your grades don't define you. So if you get a bad grade on something, because you pulled an all-nighter, or maybe because you didn't pull an all-nighter, that's okay. You're allowed to have a bad grade. I've failed at least one test per semester, and I've been on the president's list for the last 2 semesters. So it's not the end of the world. You'll still pass. Employers in the future aren't going to be looking at every single test you ever made. It's okay to even fail a class. You're allowed to retake a class. I know it's a little more money, and if you're financially able to, then $500 is $500. So, you know, failing a class isn't the end of the world. I know that's a little controversial for some parents too, or people who were, you know, like me, brought up to do A's, B's all the time, and then you get stressed because you didn't get a good grade, and then it's just this whole thing. So just know that at the end of the day, your grades don't define you as a person. You are human, you're allowed to make mistakes, and you will make mistakes. And some of them might be quantifiable in the form of a grade. And a grade's a grade. Don't take that and run with it and be like, well, my grades don't matter. You know, your grades matter, but one grade versus the whole semester isn't bad. So after all of that rambling, those are my 3 tips that I've learned as a sophomore college student, literally halfway through my college career. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I would love it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.